Welcome to People's Distinctive Travels Podcast, starring
Overlord of Fresh.
Ultramegnetic. People's Distinctive Travels Podcast.
How do you want to start?
Oh. Where do I begin? What, where, why, or when? Well, you said we want to introduce ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Well, do we want to introduce what we're doing? Like, say, what we're doing and then introduce ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to any, in terms of, our identities, I was thinking of Overlord earlier, and I was thinking of that line, the Overlordian playing MC is like an old accordion. I couldn't think of the beginning of it. That LL Cool J, right?
Yeah.
It's his verse on that's Rampage, that Candy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that the one where he says shoot the holster off the cowboy pants? I always like that line too. I think that was.
I think so.
Yeah.
There's so many lyrics
I know.
in my head.
But no, I don't know. Like, are we gonna introduce what we're doing formally by describing it, or are we gonna just kind of start talking and then it'll kind of define itself? I mean, what do you think?
Well, maybe, I don't know, want to say how we got here?
How we got here?
Yeah, it could be brief.
Yeah, you mean like how we kind of connected and
Yeah,
started...
but be very brief, and then we can go into.
Well, this is actually interesting. I think I'd love to hear your version of that, and then I would share mine. You know what I mean? Like, I'm curious about that actually. If how closely your perspective on that matches up to mine.
Okay.
I think that's interesting.
All right. Well, I'll go.
Okay.
I am Ultramag 7 IB. Anyway, so I'm on Instagram, and I run an Instagram hip hop theme page doing edits and so forth and so on. And this gentleman across from me inboxed me, and we started having conversations about hip hop and what I was doing and a lot of the connections that we had.
So I'm going to interrupt you because
Okay.
I feel like you followed me first. I don't know if you saw something that I had or whatever, and it popped up. There's a hashtag or something that popped up. It might have been an Ultramegnetic reference, but I feel like I saw you. Like,
all right, that's good.
Yeah, I saw a follow from you, and I was like, it was pretty early after I started really, having a presence on Instagram, and I saw, obviously the Ultramag immediately resonated. Right. But I didn't really know much, so I was like a little skeptical. You know what I mean?
Who is this person?
But then I saw, I looked at some of your posts, and I was like, oh, okay, this, there's some kind of overlap here in terms of things that are important to us. So go ahead.
No.
That was my
no. I like that.
But I could be wrong. It's funny how we reinvent these stories. Right. That's as interesting as how it actually happened to me.
But we started inboxing, having these conversations, and then there's people that follow me. I'm not like I'm large, but there's people all over the world, like people in Europe, people Japan, that type of stuff. And then it so happens like you live 15, 20 minutes from my house. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah. And I don't know, we had these conversations and we decided to meet up over a few beers. And,
And one of the key turning points for me, because the hip hop thing was, and by the way, I should probably say, my identity on Instagram is Overlord of Fresh. Mm-hmm. And funny enough, before I was Overlord of Fresh, I was... Decon 7 or something like that, which is funny, the 7, There
you go.
But the best story there is my whole purpose of getting on Instagram was related to like a project I'm working on, trying to write something about hip hop, and I had done an interview with Drez from Black Sheep.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, I gotta actually use this thing, and I jump on there, and I had basically, when I first went on as Decon 7, the only thing I did was follow Divine Styler.
Right.
So when I got back on, I found that I was blocked from Divine Styler, which was the whole point of me getting on there in the first place. He probably thought I was like, some kind of, robot or something, But anyway, things turned around from there, including when you and I connected.
So glad.
But one of the turning points for me was, in addition to the hip hop, you had like a video. It was a rap song, but I think it was like skateboarding reference. And I was like, this guy's into skateboarding.
Yeah.
And I remember I sent you a picture of I bought like a reproduction of the skateboard I used when I was in high school.
Right.
And then immediately you turned around and sent me a picture of your skateboard.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, man, this is crazy. You know, like there's so many layers to it,
Yeah.
So it's neat that, now we're probably not going to be spending quite as much time talking about skateboarding.
Nah.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
I will say that when I was skateboarding, I was heavily into hip hop, and the other people that I hung out with who were also into skateboarding were not listening to hip hop. They were listening to the Meat Puppets and Red Hot Chili Peppers and 7 Seconds and a lot of punk stuff. So it was interesting.
Same thing. And what's weird is, I remember like when I was skating, it was all punk, like JFA, like all that type of stuff. The I don't know, Misfits. It was all that type of stuff.
Okay.
And then the 90s hit, and like skateboarding became hip hop. Like that movie Kids.
Yeah.
It was like hip hop, and I'm like, how did that?
Yeah, I remember that.
How did that happen? That was just a weird thing to see.
Yeah. That's I think kind of how we connected originally.
Yeah.
We just started hanging out a
Yeah.
little bit and talking, and then I think we just realized that our conversations just flowed
Very good.
effortlessly.
Yeah.
We were just all these little connections and tying things together,
Right.
and raising good questions, and we just kind of felt like
Absolutely.
that relationship between us, but
Yeah.
also how we connected to hip hop as kind of an ongoing like filter for us. That's kind of cool.
Totally agree.
Overlord of Fresh.
That's kind of where we are today, but what's interesting to me is how did our paths converge? What I
Right.
mean? Like, obviously this is where we are now, but we had separate experiences for many, many years related to hip hop. Yes. And I just think that trajectory of how we kind of landed in a space that's connected is kind of interesting,
Right. Yeah.
So would you be interested in talking about,
Sure.
what was the first thing that you heard that or saw that resonate, like you knew that was rap or hip hop, and you knew that you needed more of it. Do you remember that?
Like like a lot of people, well, I don't want to say a lot of people, but people my age or people around the era always say like King Tim the Third. So I remember hearing that by the Fatback Band.
Okay.
Kim Ting the Third, Personality Jack, that song.
All right, y'all.
And then the thing I guess really set it off is, Sugar Hill Gang. Mm-hmm. So when I heard that, Rapper's Delight, and that played on the radio all the time. And so when you're a kid, you listen to your parents' records and you hear their music.
Yeah.
And then as a kid, there was like, you had Sesame Street records, you had Electric Company records, you had little kids' records, but there was no music that was, I guess it spoke to you because you're a kid, but when I heard like, Sugar Hill Gang, it was like, oh, they're talking how we talk outside. You can tell that they're young. They're not, the Supremes or Marvin Gaye, which I love, but which my parents are listening to, but they're talking about love. I'm like, what do I know about love at this age? But you just knew that was for you. And then it just, early on, it was, you know, I grew up in New Jersey, still live in New Jersey, but always 15 minutes away from Philadelphia. And I remember early on, Lady B, who was like the queen and king of Philly hip hop, she was on WHAT, which was an AM radio. So this had to be like 80, 81 or something.
Wow.
And she was playing like Crash Crew, Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, Treacherous 3, all that type of stuff. So I got it early.
Nice.
Really got it early.
For me, I would say, you know, I really, I was aware a little bit of certain things. Like I remember hearing Run DMC.
Yeah.
I definitely did not hear King Tim III and Sugar Hill Gang when it came out, you know. And definitely I had that experience of listening to my parents' records, you know, and trying to figure out, you know, what I was into.
Yeah.
But I do remember, like I said, hearing Run DMC, and the one record that does stand out from, you know, earlier on that I didn't really identify as a rap song at the time. You know, I don't think I really knew the language, but was Jam On It by Nucleus.
Oh,
that song, it just, you know, resonated with me in so many ways. And I also remember a lot of the songs that I liked around that same time. They definitely were not hip hop songs, but they had a little bit of a kind of spoken word or, you know, kind of rap element to the way, you know. So like examples would be Amadeus by Falco. You know, there's that little kind of rap part, or West End Girls by Pet Shop Boy. You know, those songs, for some reason, I always related to that, you know. But again, you know, at that point, you know, I was probably more listening to, you know, Ozzy Osbourne, Def Leppard, you know. And a little bit later, I kind of got into a little bit of new wave, like trying to, like Tears for Fears, I was into, like that kind of stuff, you know. But I would say the key moment for me, well, and I do remember we had one breakdancing competition in my neighborhood. It was we found a refrigerator box out front of someone's house that they were throwing away, and so we ripped it up. You know, we tore off the side and we laid it out. And my friend, my two friends were twins, actually, so it was the three of us, and then their older brother and his best friend judged us, you know. And I had no idea what to do.
This was serious,
it was
serious stuff.
I don't even know if there was music playing at the time, you know. But I think I did win the popping competition, which I was surprised, actually. But I think they were just being nice. But anyway, that I do remember that. But really, the key for me was a lot later. I would say I was in either 7th or 8th grade, and I had this friend named John, and he shows up at my house, and we're sitting on the porch, and I guess he had a Walkman, and he pulls out this tape, Ice-T, Rhyme Pays, and he's like, "You got to hear this," and I was like, "Okay," you know. I was a little weirded out by the name Ice-T. I'm like, that's kind of weird, you know. But anyway, he puts it in, you know, and I'm listening to it, and I couldn't believe it, you know. Like it was like earth shattering for me. It totally blew my mind, you know. And particularly the one song, and to this day I still will reference this song as, like, you know, the one song that kind of turned me into a hip hop fan was Squeeze the Trigger, which I believe is the last song on the album, right before he goes back into that kind of outro. You know?
Trying, you might cause a riot, but the radio won't play, the underground will supply it. I'm an MC pirate, that's loud, not quiet, radical as they make a rule out the fight.
Oh man, that just totally, I couldn't believe that somebody was, you know, writing rhymes about those topics that I didn't even completely understand, but I was like, okay, this is for me, you know what I mean? And then that just, from that point, you know, I just knew that I needed to hear more, you know. And I didn't even know where the heck I was going to get it, you know. So,
you know, I have a similar story with Ice-T and breakdancing.
Okay, let's hear it.
So, God rest the dead, my homeboy Skip, we were into hip hop, early, but he had the 12-inch for Reckless, the Ice-T song that's in the movie Breakin'.
Oh, okay.
And Skip, I gotta one up you. Skip had a big piece of linoleum.
Oh,
and
nice.
we used to put it in his backyard.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a competition, but we had that. I think we used to play that record and the Awesome Foursome. And we would try to do like up rocking and some floor moves. I tried breakdancing. I could do some footwork, some shuffles and that type of stuff, but I could never get a windmill right.
Nah.
I could never get it. But I mean, I had some moves. I could up rock and do some floor moves, but
Nice.
that's about it.
No, you surpassed me for sure.
I didn't win the competition though. You won the competition.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't competing against you.
Yeah, I would have served you.
Thinking about that kind of that point of origin, I guess. Like, did you start buying music right away? Like once you started realizing, I mean, you must have been pretty young in like 80, 81, right?
Yeah.
So what were you, like 7 or 8 or something like that?
A little bit older than that.
Yeah.
What was that, 10, 11? Something like that?
Okay.
9?
That's still pretty young to
Yeah.
be, going somewhere to buy your own
Well,
music, right?
well. What used to happen was my aunt used to go over to the Bourse in Philly.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And so we'd be right on Market Street. And I'd ask her, can I go to the record store? So we would go to, so there used to be a record store, Sound of Market.
Okay.
So Sound of Market.
I always wanted to go there.
Yo.
Oh, I heard about that so many times, but
dude.
I had no way of getting there.
So, and she would also go to like the Gallery Mall right there, Market. So if we were there, it's like, can we go, so we go to Sound of Market, which you would go up, and you walk in like, oh my God.
Oh, man.
Or you go to Funko Mart.
I was going to say,
Yeah, Funko
did you go to
Mart.
Funko Mart? Because that
Mart.
was another one. I never went to either of those places,
Yeah.
but I always, because I would hear, they would mention it on the radio, and I'd be like, I got to go there.
Dude. So Funko Mart, you go down, and then Sound of Market, you go up.
Okay.
But, you go in there and you'd see these record sleeves. You see the profile, the red profile.
Yeah.
It just says Pro. Or you see that Def Jam with that maroon with the arm.
Yeah.
Or definitely Sugar Hill. You'd see that with the Candyland type thing. But I think one of the earliest 12 inches I remember buying was I think LL Cool J's I Need a Beat. And
I think I have that, actually,
Yeah.
that 12-inch.
And Roxanne Shantae's Queen of Rocks.
Okay.
Because that whole Roxanne, that whole battle with her and UTFO, that was big then. And actually the thing with Roxanne Shante is she used to be on Pop Art Records, which is a Philly-based label. So, they had all those, I mean, it was easy to find those records.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, those are some of the earliest records I remember buying.
Why'd you have to make a record about me?
Oh my goodness!
My version of that, so I couldn't, I didn't have a way to get to Funko Mart or
Right.
Sound of Market. I'm a little younger than you
Yeah.
are, but I knew those names, But we had this little convenience store. It was a weird place. It's actually right down the road.
Okay.
Not anymore, but it was
Right.
where the Wawa ended up moving in. But it was called J&K Market, and it was so like 70s inside. It had like freezers around the entire store. So any frozen food, you just had to like walk the perimeter of the store, and that's where it was. But they had this magazine section, and I remember going there. So this was after I heard the Ice-T tape and
Oh.
a few other things. Like I remember hearing in the weight room at school, guys were playing Run's House.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
that's a good hype song.
Yeah.
And I definitely heard I'm Bad from
Mm-hmm.
LL. So I had a few references at that point. So I go into this J&K
Mm-hmm.
and I see this magazine. I think it was Word Up magazine.
Well, word up.
And there's an issue, so I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. So I go home, right, and I'm opening, and I didn't know any of these people, and I'm just looking at them, and they all, you could tell there was like different personalities,
Yeah,
there, just from looking at, and kind of like you were saying with the record sleeves, like there might have been some like advertisements of records or whatever, but I
Right.
was more interested in the appearance of, so I literally
Right.
went through, it was like a yearbook or something, and I went through and I made note of all the people that I wanted to
Right.
get albums from, just from the way they looked. And ones that stand out to me, I still can picture like Biz Markie.
Ah.
I saw him, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely getting Biz Markie.
Mhm.
And I did get that. That was one of my earliest ones. I got that at Cowtown, actually.
Wow.
Big Daddy Kane,
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a picture of him like holding his crown.
Yeah. Oh, I know that picture. Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, that guy.
I know that picture.
One that really stood out though to me that I was like, oh yeah, I definitely got to check these guys out was Audio 2. There's a great picture
yeah.
of them in there. I wish I still had that. I don't think I still have that magazine, but there were those were the three main ones that really stood out to me. That when I saw that, I was like, okay, how am I going to find these records?
Yeah.
Actually, I was buying tapes at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I did find a lot of them at Cowtown, because there was this guy out there. He had like this bunch of cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
And there was just cassette after cassette in there. It wasn't all hip hop, but he had a really nice hip hop section. So I definitely got a bunch from him early on, because I didn't really know where to go to get them.
Yeah.
I did get one tape from my paper route. Did I ever tell you about that? So my paper, I did a paper route in like 8th grade, 9th grade, and I had heard "Road to the Riches"
Oh.
on the radio, and I was like, oh, that's nice.
Great song.
So anyway, if you got new customers and you were 100% on collecting for a certain amount of weeks or whatever, for my paper route, you could get like a prize,
Okay.
and you would there was a card that you would fill out. So I actually filled it out, and I wrote Cool G Rap and DJ Polo Road to the Riches on there, right?
Ah.
And I knew it was like a leap of faith. I'm like, but one day I don't know, did you ever have a paper route?
No.
So there was like a drop-off point down the street from my house where all the papers would just be in like a pile, and they would be like tied up, and sometimes if it was the weather was bad, there would be some plastic over it, and sitting on the top of the pile one day was Road to the Riches cassette. I couldn't believe it. I was shocked.
God.
But the best thing that I always think about is like, first of all, like, where did they get it?
Yeah.
And second of all, I can't imagine like whoever was responsible for like finding these prizes, like they must have been like, what the heck is this? Like,
What is a Cool G
yeah,
Rap
where
and
am I
DJ
gonna find
Polo?
this?
Yeah.
I always like think about that, but yeah, I couldn't believe that showed up one day. So honestly, that was the purpose of my paper route. Was I wanted money for new release day, Tuesday. Back then, now it's Friday, but back then it was Tuesday, and I would just ride my bike up to the store, which is next town over, and pick, I would just look at the wall and be like, okay, I'll take that, and go up and pay for it.
Yeah. Well, early on for me, I wasn't a DJ, and we couldn't get over to Philly all the time.
Right.
So I was kind of trying to find a way to hear more music besides the radio, or if I wasn't taping a show, to have something I could constantly play.
Yeah.
And back then there weren't that many albums out. I think because I started my collection way back then, and I think I might have had the first Run DMC album, the first Fat Boys album,
Okay.
and I think there might have been a Curtis Blow album. But I used to listen to like stuff like Art of Noise and stuff like that,
Okay.
and
Yeah,
that
I used to
was
love that stuff.
And they had the hard drums, so that was like this is hip hop to me, like
Yeah.
Kraftwerk. I'm like this
Totally,
is
yeah.
hip hop to me, all that electro stuff.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I remember listening to Rap Digest, which I think was that 103.
That was 105. That was
Yeah.
WDAS.
Yeah.
Mimi Brown. Yep.
Yeah, Mimi Brown. I would listen to that, and I remember I think the show ended at like 11,
Mm-hmm.
so there was always like a changeover,
Yeah.
and usually like I would have my tape running,
Mm-hmm.
and usually, the next I remember I heard the remix to Keep On Moving with all those little bits of her, Karen Wheeler singing,
yeah.
and they would keep repeating, and
Yeah.
then, and I was obsessed with that. But I would hear so many cool things, and I remember one time they played that Art of Noise,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What is this?" You
Yeah.
know. But you're right, like to me when I heard, and sometimes it was more like almost like techno sounding,
Mm-hmm.
Like I think I heard like Break for Love at one
Yeah.
point on there. Good Life, remember that song?
Yeah.
I used to love that song. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like those songs, I agree. For me, they kind of tied in with hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
and possibly because temporally they occurred right after the show I was listening to. But they did have like a cool sound, and the drum, the drums, and even like an early label like Sleeping Bag Records. They were known for putting out a lot of dance records too.
Yeah.
So there definitely was that
A lot
connection
of
there.
freestyle and dance stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's cool that you made that connection.
Mm-hmm. Well, just back then, I guess, like I said, what did I say? Philly radio.
Philly radio.
Lady B was WHAT. Then there was a new radio station, Power 99. And then she started the Street Beat show.
I remember that.
Hold up. Before we get started, I'd like to say that my name is Lady B. I rock on Power 99. I got my man Brian in the house. Yo, Brian, you there?
What?
Got Disco C in the place to be. See you rocking?
Yup.
You come from 99, we're gonna blow your mind. Now, all the people on the left side, I want you to put your hands high in the air. All the people in Delaware, I want you to put your hands high in the air.
Everybody in Germantown, check it out.
We from 99, we're gonna blow your mind.
It was weird. I remember when it started, it was on Sunday morning, and I'd be at church, and it was like, it started up right around the time I was coming out of church. And my mom, after church, she wants to talk to everybody or give people rides home. And I'm like, I want to get home and tape the show.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I would take Mom, give me the keys. And I go in the car and turn on the radio, but you can't turn it loud because you're in front of the church. And then
I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so I'm just in the car jamming, and people are walking by trying to say hi or bye. And I'm like, leave me alone. I'm trying to listen to the, but she used to play she played all the Philly stuff, Schoolie D, MC Breeze, a little bit later, Tough Crew, DJ Lightning Bridge, and Cash Money, and Marvelous, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Yeah.
It sounds like you listened to Street Beat earlier than I did.
Yeah.
Because it was on though into what, like the early 90s.
Yeah,
At some point it changed over to Radioactive, right?
So I had stopped, but I believe it did. I'd stopped
yeah.
listening, but I believe it did. Yeah.
But I definitely listened to Street Beat and Rap Digest.
Mimi Brown. Shout out Mimi Brown, Rap Digest on WDAS.
That's what I remember. So many things I heard for the first time on there.
Oh yeah,
like 3 Times Dope.
Oh.
They came on, and at first, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it was the name of their group, and I'm like, wow, these guys aren't just dope; they're 3 times dope. You know what I mean? I didn't know, all that language. Like it took me a while, to really understand. What everything meant.
It's a hip hop vernacular. Yeah.
That reminds me of, I remember talking to you about that clip in Art of Rap where Premier was talking about that. How it's so much about understanding the language. I felt like a fish out of water. You know what I mean? But my thing with radio, because I would stay up faithfully Friday nights.
Yeah.
And I think something came on Saturday nights too, I think. And I would just have my tape ready. I had so many tapes, and they were those little yellow Maxell, like day glow color tapes. Remember them?
Yeah.
And I did my best because, it was hard to know what the songs were. You know, so I would try to like figure out what based on the chorus or whatever. And I remember one I labeled as some Public Enemy song, but it ended up not being Public Enemy. It was it sounded so much like them.
Rhythm Radicals, was it?
What was it?
The Rhythm Radicals?
No, it was that Brains Unchained and My Soul's Untied. I can't think of the name of the group. I figured it out later. But I that one I thought for sure. I wrote it as some Public Enemy song, you know. But you know, 3 Times Dope. I remember the first time I heard Duck Alert.
Oh, Craig G. Molly Mo.
Oh man, that song. You know, I didn't at that time. I didn't know that hey was a reference to Red Alert. I didn't know Red Alert at that point. You know what I mean? Like now, you know, I know so many people. I could be like, oh yeah, Red Alert, and they're like, who? You know what I mean? But at that point, I was one of those people. I had no idea. So I didn't know that was
a diss record.
That was a diss record. I had no idea. All I know is it just sounded really cool, you know? And another one that really stands out from that time, two more. Step Up Front by Positive K. That beat, I remember they would keep going back to like one line over and over, and I was so that song is great. You know who produced that song?
King of Chill, was it?
No, Grand Poobah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a nice song, man. And then the other one was Gets No Deeper by Super Lover C and Casanova Rudd. I was like obsessed with that song. I remember for so long I tried to find.
I'll never get out.
Yeah, it took me forever to find that album. I finally did get it on tape. I have it on vinyl now, but. That was great. So those 4, I remember that sound. All these sounds, these weird sounds, like little vocals, like wrapped in there, and you know these repetitive drums. All that stuff to me. I guess I didn't realize it was like electronic production, basically. Yeah. You know, but that just captured me. I was so into that. You know. And I think that, and you mentioned Cash Money and Marvelous. I remember hearing Mighty Hard Rocker and Time's Up. I always liked that one a lot too. They would play those a lot on there, and they all just had these great sounds.
Great
production, man.
One more radio thing I just want to be real quick. I used to listen to WKDU 91.7.
Okay.
Which
I still listen to that.
Yeah. Which is
I didn't know they had hip hop back then.
Did they? They used to kill it.
Okay.
And these guys
I didn't discover that until much later.
And they were mixing on the records and stuff, like 91.7, which is the DU in WKDU is Drexel University, which ironically I went to years later, so just a little quick time.
That's cool. Yeah, I had no idea. You know, like I've listened to that station much later, and I think there was like the Down Low Mix Show at one point, which was like maybe 10 years ago, like Mama with the Drama or something. You know, they had some pretty. That's where I first heard. I definitely remember this. That's where I first heard This Year by Megahertz.
Okay. Oh, wow.
That song, man.
Shout out to my man Copyright.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Shout out to Copyright.
Oh, that song, I could listen to that over and over. But yeah, I heard that for the first time on WKDU. Wow. But that was probably 10, 15 years ago, you know.
Wow.
Something like that.
Yeah,
well, I guess it might have been earlier because when did that come out? In like 2002 or something like that? I think it was
something like that. Yeah,
probably around that time.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? So it's like full circle.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
The radio really helped me discover a lot of things, you know, because first of all, I didn't have anyone that could turn me on to anything, you know, when it came to rap, you know. So if anyone was doing any turning on to something, I was doing the turning, you know what I mean? Because of the people I knew, I had the most knowledge, even though it wasn't that great, you know what I mean? But yeah, so I remember, you know, hearing Ultramegnetic MCs in the studio rapping. And hearing just the flow, and I'm like, who are these guys? They sounded, to me, it was like I was in science class or something, you know, like it just was so, even the words they use, you know, it just blew my mind, you know. And now I relate to it in a similar but, you know, more nuanced way, I think. But back then it was just, you know, okay, this is so different, you know.
I had that same experience. So I remember Lady B playing Ego Trippin', which is, I mean, the name is Ultramag 7, you know.
Yeah.
But Ego Trippin' is my favorite hip-hop song ever. Probably my favorite song ever.
Okay.
And I remember it sounded totally different than everything else because it had that synthetic substitution loop. And everybody, you know, a lot of people at that time were using drum machines, but they had this loop and it was so hard. It's like MC Ultramegnetic. And I'm like, what is this? And then when they were rhyming, they weren't rhyming.
They weren't rhyming, exactly.
It was rhythmic and it was on time,
Yeah.
but I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
Blew my mind.
Yeah,
Blew my mind.
the no rhyme thing was very interesting to me. And then the vocabulary, you know, I just couldn't believe some of the stuff that
To the scientific matter, I probe for evidence.
Yeah, exactly. The way the voices played off of each other.
Yeah.
You know, you had the one that a little higher pitch,
Yes.
and then that really deep. You know, it just worked so perfectly.
It was
you know?
perfect record.
Yeah, that record is amazing.
Ultra. MC's Ultra. MC Ultra. MC. Say G. Using frequencies and data, I am approximate, leaving revolutions, turning emerging chemistry.
Another one you mentioned, like that's your favorite, probably your favorite song of all time. You know, my favorite. You know, I would probably say if somebody just said quick, you know, what's your favorite rap song? I would say "Let the Words Flow" by Cho. And by the way, my first Ultramegnetic song I heard was "Give the Drummer Some," and that little skip beat in that, you know, that really I was into that. Man, you know, I love that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard, so I didn't hear "Let the Words Flow" till later when I bought the album, but I remember one night I'm listening to, I forget what show it was one of those shows, and all of a sudden acapella comes on. Friday night we out playing the corner, not because we hoods, cause we wanna. No drugs being sold, we ain't dirty. Polaroids in effect, watch the birdie. that voice was like similar to Said G, I think, you know, that really powerful voice, you know. And I was like, who is this guy? You know?
Chill one.
And then so, you know, it was a cappella too, which really accented the voice. And then all of a sudden that flute comes in, you know, and I was like, man, I gotta find out more about this. And it was cool because it wrapped into another song which I love from back then, that Dope on Plastic from Uptown. So I heard those two songs like on the same episode, you know. But I remember they used that, yes, you are now rocking with the best, and then they started like mixing that into Uptown, you know. But yeah, and I think initially the Uptown song was being played over the beat from the Chill Rob G song. What's that song called? Quarters Now in Session. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. So that was a significant moment for me, you know. And I remember getting that tape and going home and listen. And, you know, I knew the Flavor Unit at that time, you know, so I was pretty, you know, hyped up and expecting, you know, something good, you know, so I was not disappointed.
My styles unorthodox, but of course it rocks. And when it comes to styles, I'm overstocked. You might never get to hear my last rhyme, cause I've been writing since you heard me last time. I could go on, the G is strong, I rock the show, I clock the dough. And let the words flow.
Well, yeah, that if it wasn't for the radio, I don't know. I mean, I may have picked that up anyway, just because, you know, if I flip it over and see it's produced by DJ Mark the 45 King, I probably would have bought it. You know, because I was aware of that. But the radio definitely helped me to identify some of those artists.
Well, a lot of those artists, and you were just talking about right then, I know the connection to another station is WPRB in Princeton.
Yeah, which I love that station too. But again, I wouldn't have listened to that back then. You know?
I mean, that was that station was awesome. I remember like, so going from Lady B, I remember, I don't know what day I caught that, but I heard about WPRB and it was Thursdays, and it was Tony D, God rest his dead, Tony D. Nice. He was on there.
I do kind of remember hearing him on the radio at one point.
It was him, cool. Easy M, and then G. And I know I've seen G. He's a promoter, and he did a lot of stuff for Wu-Tang. But they used to play they would play like a lot of, you know, they played a lot of Jersey stuff. So Poor Righteous Teachers, they played Flavor Unit, YZ, nice. Boulevard Mossy, Black Prince and Asiatic, all that type of stuff.
Speaking of New Jersey, another one that stands out from radio that I definitely heard on the radio for the first time was Paper Chase by Crown Rulers. Oh, that one. You know, I would play that over and over. You know, that guy Grand Poobah was his
Mhm.
name, right?
Grand Poobah,
It
yeah.
confused me, because I knew the other, at first. But I know it was spelled differently, I think.
Yeah.
But I remember, like, looking back on it, he just had so many lines. Like, it reminds me of Doom in a way. You know, he just kind of kept rhyming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was like, man, this guy's just got lines for days. You know what I mean? It was very unique.
And the vocabulary.
And
it was
yes,
yeah.
exactly. I totally agree, because I did kind of think similarly as Ultramegnetic. You know, the words he was using, I wasn't hearing other people using that kind of vocabulary. You know.
Yeah, I think Ultramegnetic was a big influence on them, because then also I believe Said G and TR and all those guys, I think they produced their first, like, Kick the Ball.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think if you look on that Fan Jam,
I'll have to check that out.
I think
there's like a shout out to them on there.
yeah. I think I was just listening to this. I think Too Tough was saying, I think they were doing a show, or they were meeting up with Ultramagnetic or something in Philly, and then Ultra ended up staying for like a little while or something like that, and they were instrumental in producing.
I could see that. I mean,
you can hear it.
Yeah,
you can hear it.
sonically.
Yeah, I mean, Said G's production is distinctive.
I am a little mad at myself though that I don't know that. You know what I mean?
Kick the ball.
I think I mentioned earlier, I was very fascinated by the appearance of, people that I later came to know very well through their music, like Audio 2 and Bismarcky, And by the way, my friend John, the one that played me the Rhyme Pays tape,
Right.
he could do the best Bismarcky impersonation. It was amazing. Like that part in Picking Boogers, "Hey Mom, what's for dinner?" It sounded just like Bismarck. It was awesome. I'm not good at doing impersonation, but he nailed it.
Hey mom, what's for dinner? Go up your nose and pick a winner.
Another thing that always was interesting to me was names. Yeah, and still is interesting to me.
Right.
I've come up with a million rap names just
Right.
because I'm intrigued. I think we've talked about this a little bit before. I'm intrigued by what names mean, and like the selection process. So I guess, like, one of the things I was thinking about going back is, did you ever have your own name? You know what I mean? Like,
Rap name?
Yeah, because you had like a little group at one point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just curious about that.
So quick, going back. So this is good. Going back to what you were saying about that song by Positive K, and it had that, which I think is from the TV show Ironside. If I'm,
Oh, really?
I think.
Nice.
Don't give me.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
That's cool.
The way that I met my rhyming partner when I was in the hip hop group was, he lived in the street over from me, and we would go to the bus stop. He was new to town, and we'd be on the bus stop, and we had our headphones on, so we were listening to music, and I was blasting like Ultramagnetic or something, and whatever he was blasting, and then I think when I got on the bus, I took like my headphones off to scratch my ear or something, and I heard that, and I'm like, oh, he's listening to Positive K, and I'm like, oh, he knows what's up. Then later on, I heard he was like, listen, like Ultramagnetic. I'm like, oh, so me and him became fast friends, and he's the guy who told me I should start rapping, because he said he was going to start a rap group. And I'm like, well, I didn't rap. And he was like, well, and I was, I was artistic and used to draw. I was like, well, I'll be the art director. This is around the time that De La had came up with 3 Feet High and Rising, and he had all that, the illustrations inside. So I'm like, well, I'll do something like that. But he was like, no, you should start rapping. And tying in, like we were saying about 45 King and all that, I learned to rap over 45 King instrumentals. Like he used to have that master, all those little. We had the cassettes.
I think I have a couple of those.
Yeah, and we used to just play them, and I'm like trying to catch the beat and rhyme. But going back with that is, you gotta get a rap name. So this ties into skateboarding.
Okay.
So I'm trying to come up with a rap name, and I think I had a Thrasher magazine. and I was looking in the magazine, and there was a pro skater from Philly named Chuck Treese. So
I'm familiar with that name.
yeah. So me being African American in skating, I identify with Chuck Treese. And I remember it was like a full page ad, and it said Ja Cone, and I'm like, it sounded weird, but I was like, yo, there's something fly about that. I said, but I wouldn't be a cone, like. So I took that N and changed it to an M, and then just put like an accent over the O, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be Ja Cone.
Okay.
So that
Was it all one word or two?
No,
words?
it was Ja hyphen COME with the little accent over the O. So that was my like first rap name, and then I'm thinking this is like late 80s, and I'm like, nobody had names like everybody's like, I'm the master super duper.
Yeah.
I had that, and it's weird, like
You think that was maybe influenced though a little bit by some of the people you were listening to, because some of those artists that had different kind of names too.
Definitely, yeah. But it's weird, like that's there's still a lot of like people that still call me Ja, like to this
that's
like
cool.
Like I know who, like I'll know where I met you from, by what you call me, because I have a lot of nicknames.
Okay.
So like depending on what you call me, I know
neat.
where I met you, or how we relate.
Ja Cone, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a cool name. Yeah, I like that.
Ja Cone.
Was that the only one you had?
That was when I was in high school. So shout out to my man P.S. Nice. That's my rhyming partner, and his name back then was DJ Cutsology. Okay. But now he goes by DJ Brown Bum, who actually he DJs for R.A. the Rugged Man. But that was my group when I was in high school. But professionally, I rapped under the name Seven, which was...
Is that where the 7 and Ultramag 7 comes from?
Well, Ultramag 7 is... Ultramagnetic is my favorite group, and 7 is my favorite number. So
that's my favorite number.
There you
7.
go.
Yeah, that was always my lucky number. That was my soccer number in high
There
school.
you go.
Yeah.
But professionally, I was 7, and it was number 7. It was spelled number 7 EVEN, but everybody used to say 7 even, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like
7 even.
Yeah, and I guess they were trying. It's a play on words because 7 is odd. I'm like, no. No, it's 7. But I used to rhyme with a young lady out of New York City named Princess Superstar, and I met her. She was working on an album called Is, and actually no, going back to buying records. I actually bought her record called Last of the Greatest 20th Century Composers. Conchetta, I'm sorry if I got that wrong, but I bought her CD. Because I was, I would always try to find obscure records or different records.
I remember when that came out.
Yeah,
I was kind of in that same zone around that time.
And shout out to Conchetta, it's my homegirl, but she was like painted gold on the album cover.
I remember that. Yeah. I totally remember that.
She looked kind of hot. I said I need to check this out.
Yeah.
So I picked up that CD. I went back to my homeboy Big Jim Slade's crib. Shout out to Slade, and we played it, and I'm like, yo, this is kind of dope. And I was making demos with Big Jim Slade, my buddy back then. Well, he's still my buddy, but I mean, back then when we made it. And he was like, yo, we should send some stuff to her. I'm like, all right, because she had her own label. So he sent her some of our demos, and she basically was trying to tell us that, she wasn't soliciting acts. Like, her label was kind of a vehicle to get her off the ground. You're like, all right, cool. She said, but I'm working on an actual album if you want to submit some beats. So my buddy Slade submitted a beat. She liked it.
Nice.
And then so that got on the record. And I believe at the same time, I think Slade got chops from the Mountain Brothers. I think he has a placement on there too. Okay. Because they used to work together.
Okay.
But yeah, I rap professionally under the name 7 with Princess Superstar.
I like that.
Shout out Conchetta.
That's interesting. I never knew where the 7 came from, but that's I'm glad I knew that.
Favorite number.
That's pretty cool. Well, I never recorded anything, so my rap name was just more me fantasizing, I guess. You know what I mean? I will say that I think I discovered one of the reasons that rap songs resonated with me, I think I realized, is that I just am drawn to poetry and rhyming in general. And
Right.
I'm amazed at the different ways people can figure out to rhyme things, you know? And I definitely was into the layering of rhymes, you know. That's why I like people like Cool G Rap and Big Daddy Kane, you know, Master Ace, you know, early on, really, and Chill Rob G, you know, they really resonated with me because they were doing these like multiple lines, multiple rhymes. But so you know, that always, so I think I always just had this thought of, you know, I wrote tons of poems and stuff, and I think like later I got more into poetry that didn't rhyme, and it didn't really sound like rap at all. It was more, you know, more like literary, I guess. Although, you know, I shouldn't say that because hip hop is very literary too, you know. But anyway, so my first rap name, I think I was in 9th grade. I remember a friend of mine and I who, you know, kind of marginally liked rap. He was interested. I would play him songs or whatever. He knew I was like so into De La Soul at the time. There was like a lip sync contest at one of our dances. And I got to tell you, our dances, the only hip hop you heard at our dances was maybe It Takes Two from Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock, you know, or you would hear Q-Tip's line from Groove Is in the Heart. Right. You know what I mean? Mostly what you would hear is things like the B-52s and Eric Clapton. And nothing against those things. You know, I love the B-52s. Right. There would be like the occasional Cure song, which, you know, I'm a Cure fan, you know. But anyway, there was this girl who was a few years older than me who was super cute. And I remember she was the manager of our soccer team. And one day I was talking to this kid who was older than I was about De La Soul, and he was into it too. And I think he was fascinated by the Steely Dan sample. And I remember him talking about that, which I always love that song too. But I remember this girl, her name was Courtney. She was talking about how she loved Jennifer Taught Me. So that was in the back of my head. So they had this lip sync contest. And at one of our dances, I was a freshman, you know, and I was like, "Hey, I think it would be a great idea if we lip sync Jennifer Taught Me." And I remember we practiced different moves that we could synchronize with each other. It was crazy, you know.
Anything for the ladies.
Yeah, seriously. Who knows if she was even at the darn thing, you know what I mean? But, you know, it made it easy for me to choose which song I was going to do, you know what I mean? But I remember at that point, I had come up with a name for myself. And looking back on it, I think it's so funny. It was Too Potent.
Too Potent.
Yeah, that was my name. And, you know, it's funny because like now if I talk about it, I'll be like, yeah, I was the world's first Viagra rapper, you know what I mean?
Too potent.
Yeah, I would have like Viagra pills in my videos for like product placement, you know?
Watch out, ladies. Too potent.
But yeah, so that was the first one I came out. And you know, back then there were a bunch of people with that, you know, with a number kind of mixed in like that, you know.
I was 2 steps ahead. That was our group.
2 steps ahead.
That was our group.
And I think I also was kind of interested in Too Poetic at that time too, you know.
Oh yeah.
So you know, maybe that was kind of in the back of my head. But then later on, and again, I never recorded anything, you know. I did write a bunch of raps. I still have the loose leaf that I wrote them on, and you know, they weren't anything great. But I got really into different spellings of things. I think partially because of Kwame, you know, and Sly and the Family Stone, the way they would kind of write things out. And I think he probably was influenced by that too. But I came up with it was right around the time I was really into Poor Righteous Teachers too, and I came up with this idea. I was going to be the Oracle. Yeah, and I was really into the Never-Ending Story too. And I don't you remember the Oracles at the end? I always thought that was kind of cool. So that was my second one. And I think Oracle was spelled like Orikuhl or something crazy, you know. It's just so funny, you know. I guess I'm a little embarrassed by it, but at the same time, it's like that's where I was at the time.
That's the time, yeah. No.
And it's kind of cool, like looking back.
It
on
is.
it, you know.
Like I said, some people still call me Ja. So
Yeah. Well, that's a cool name.
Yeah. Whatever it's done. And then later on, when I saw Ja Rule, I'm like, "Hey, what's this guy?"
He took your name.
Well,
right?
I had moved on. I think to 7. I don't know if I was still Ja Cole then, or I don't know. But no, I think I still was. And then when I heard him, like, "Yo, I can't come out now. It can't be that many Jaws."
That reminds. Wasn't there like something with Letterman, like K Solo and somebody about like
And DMX.
was it? I thought
They
it
were
was
back?
DMX. Yeah.
So the what's the song? "Get at Me, Dog." Like that's about K Solo. Like
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was it.
Oh yeah, they had yeah, it was a beat. He actually, I don't want to say it. He said that K he can. So that was a battle song. Yeah.
I love all those stories, you know.
Yeah. They were arguing over who was the first one to spell, you know, like he's saying he took his style, but I tell you, when I first time I heard that K Solo record,
Spellbound.
oh well, no, I mean when he was on EPMD's record, when SPELL, very WELL, people all out there can TELL, and you know, I mean everybody knows, but the funny thing about that, he spelled bird wrong.
Yeah.
Like he said, like a BRID.
Yeah, BRID.
Like a brid.
Yeah.
But it was still dope.
Yeah,
it was still dope.
No, I agree. I remember hearing that too, and thinking, oh, I love this guy's voice.
Oh.
You know? Yep. The song I loved from him was "Will the Real Solo Please Stand Up."
With the real solo.
Yeah, I love that song.
Yeah.
Man. My style's aggressive like a pit bull terrier.
Yeah.
Part of it sounds on wax. The more, the merrier. Man, that song to me. It's funny. I always have that one song from an album. I like them all, you know, but there's always that one.
Yeah.
You know, that I'm like, yeah, that's my song.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And it's so clear too to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like going back to Chill Rob G, Let the Words Flow.
Mine too.
That's my song. You know, like I love that whole album.
But that's the song.
But that one.
Yeah.
You know, I always have.
I
that.
agree.
It's funny, and I love hearing other people's songs from each album. You know. Or like which album from an artist they like, you know. I think that's interesting. It tells you something about, you know, where their values are and, you know, what resonates with them. You know, I think that's pretty cool.
People's Distinctive Travels Podcast.
I feel like we need like some Bismarcky like instrumental behind us as we do the shout out. He was like the king of shout outs.
Yeah.
You know, on his albums. I could just hear like a little beat going on. It always pissed me off too, because he would have like this awesome beat and all he'd be doing is talking about the people he wanted to thank over. And I'm like, man, you should be rhyming.
First people I like to thank.
Yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2. Okay. This is a dedication record. The first people I like to thank is.
Gotta give a shout out to homeboy DJ Soulbuck.
Absolutely.
For doing the music for the podcast. He did the intro music, so definitely thank you. Shout out to my man DJ Soulbuck.
Yeah.
He did the beat, he did the cuts and hooked that up, and definitely shout out to him.
Yeah, I feel like he really kind of captured what we what we're all about. That was great.
Soulbuck is great. He's great.
DJ Soulbuck, baby.
The next people I like to thank.
I would give a shout to my brother. Yeah, I won't say anything mean. My brother, Sean, a.k.a. Blade. Probably also give a shout out to my boy DJ Spoon, Bruce Frazier.
The next people I like to thank is
I would have to shout out John Truman, who you know, besides playing me Rhyme Pays by Ice-T,
Right.
always had visible cassettes
Yeah.
in his house when I would stay overnight there.
Yeah.
That just, even the visuals,
Yeah.
you know, just captivated me.
Yo, I like the thing.
The other guy across the street from me is the one who led me to Public Enemy. His name was Jim.
Some of the people I pinpointed earlier, so definitely DJ Brown Bum. You know, he always had a boatload of records at his house that we would dig, and he was always putting stuff together, making beats.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely my man Nice, Nyreek Lee, because like he's the one that got me into rhyming.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you know, if I go back to high school, that group, you know, being in that group, so
Is that 2 Steps Ahead?
2 Steps Ahead, yeah.
Yeah.
So Carl and Theron, they were our dancers.
Nice.
So that was, I mean, 2 Steps Ahead. It's funny, 2 Steps Ahead just isn't. It wasn't 2 people.
Right.
It was, you know what I mean? It's like 5 people, 2 dancers,
Yeah,
DJ,
well,
2 MCs.
I mean, it's rare that you have 5 people that are 2 steps ahead of everyone else. So, you know, I get it.
It's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
Challenge. Well, you know, let me give it a shout out. We had a posse back then. We were Wu-Tang before Wu-Tang.
Okay.
So our crew was called Stronghold Unity. So let me think. My man Donald Doan. So there was Kinetic and Potential MC. They were scientific. We have a man Sandman, George. Actually, so to get racial, we had a group 3 white MCs, and we called them Opposite Spectrum.
This done by Redman with horns on his head.
Yeah,
Lay
they
down
call
the
it-
L plan. Yeah,
There you
nice.
go.
Okay.
So we all had like these crazy Opposite Spectrum, but this was our little 2 steps ahead, our little crew. I mean, not Stronghold Unity, our crew of people. Oh, Scar, my man Scar.
I had a couple friends who encouraged me, you know, that they were just open in general, so I could
Mhm.
play stuff for them. My friend Mark, my friend Rob, my friend Jason, you know, like those guys were like, and my friend Barnaby, you know, they were all like close people to me. And I remember my friend Barnaby to this day is still a downtown Science fan, you know, and he will play Saw You at the Party and Fat Tape. Is it Fat Tape? Yeah, something.
Fat Tape.
Yeah, no, that's King's Son, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm mixing it up here.
Shout out to my man DJ Divine. I used to do a radio show a few years back with Divine, but he's always sometimes we always throw back and forth music, and he's in that, you know, we're in that retro, all that old music, and you know, even new stuff. And but shout out to DJ Divine. My man DJ Mixmash, shout out to him. I finally got to meet him a few weeks ago. Young DJ, he's originally from Jersey. He moved down to I think North Carolina. But shout out to him. I think he's on Beat Miners Radio.
Okay,
He has a show.
nice.
Let me give a shout out to she would expect this because she gets on my nerves and I hate her. It's a love-hate relationship.
All right, it's good lead in.
But my homegirl Kira,
Okay.
shout out to her because she's shout out to her because she always goes to hip hop shows with me,
Okay.
and we always go
Nice.
to shows.
Good.
but-
Well, at least you have someone.
But she's a pain in my butt.
Well, at least you have someone to go to those shows, because a lot of times I just go solo. Did you capture everyone you were hoping to catch?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's it.
This might sound a little, you know, romantic or whatever, but I feel like I could give you a shout, because I feel like you gave me a little confidence to be a little more open and a little more visible from a social media perspective, you know, and I pay attention to what you do, you know, and that I think that helped me. And sometimes you give me a little like nudge to, you know, whether you intend to or not, you know, it just kind of keeps me a little focused. I think you're pretty focused, so it's very helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.